Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make a tumbler inspired by these earrings from an artist that I found on Instagram named Jolly Wally. We are also doing this as my Flynn Inspired Design Challenge in my mentorship group. I absolutely love this look. I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. We'll have all the products that you see in this video listed and linked down below in the description box. I will link the artists that inspired me in the description box as well. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so we are working with a 10-ounce Stubby today from Craft Haven. I love these little cups. I am taping off my bottom, so I'm going to run a line of electrical tape along the bottom rim, run it through my edge trimmer so I can get a nice crispy line. And if you're wondering why or how I tape off the bottom of my tumblers, I will link a video down below in the description box that I think you'll really find helpful. Once I'm done taping off that bottom rim, I'm going to sand the sides of my tumbler, avoiding the very bottom, with an 80 grit sanding block just to prep it, and we'll clean it up with some rubbing alcohol. And now we're ready to start on our base paint. For my base paint today, I'm using Candy Pink from Rust-Oleum. This paint does have a primer built in, so I'm not going to do white first. You can if you want to get kind of a better color coverage. But we're going to pile a bunch of glitter over this, so I'm not really too concerned. I let this dry for about 20 minutes or until it was dry to the touch before we moved on to our next step. Next, we're going to be applying our glitter using the epoxy method. So I'm going to spread a very thin layer of epoxy. For this, we'll need less than 5 milliliters of epoxy. And we just want to make sure we get everything nice and smooth. We don't want to have any kind of streaks or ridges in the finish here. Once we've got that nicely coated, I am going to start sprinkling on my glitter. I'm actually using 3 different kinds of glitter today. You don't have to, but I wanted to add some pizzazz and a little depth and interest. So I'm going to start out with Norma Jean from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is one of my favorite Peachy Olive glitter colors. It has some like opal, holographic, different size shapes. It's just a really fun chunky mix. And I'm almost going to sprinkle this on in like a calico pattern, so just kind of random spots will be sprinkling in this color. Then I'm going to go in with Lassie doing the same thing. This is like a really light kind of baby pink, medium to chunky custom mix, super pretty. And then to finish it off, I'm going to just let it rip with Lost for Words. Another one of my favorite Peachy Olive glitter colors because it is so versatile and so beautiful. And we'll just go right over those spots where we had laid the chunky glitter down earlier to make sure that we've filled any gaps. Once we're done, I'm going to aggressively tap off the excess glitter, and then I'm going to remove my tape from the bottom rim. We do not want to let all of this dry with the tape still on, or it could get stuck. If you're not taping off your bottom rim, then you can just ignore that part of the instruction. I'm going to let this dry on my rack for about 2 to 3 hours before moving on to the next step. Now that my glitter is dry, I'm ready to apply my first coat of epoxy. I've taped off my bottom rim again with a fresh piece of tape, and I've got about 30 milliliters already mixed here. I am using my Flynn Sisters premium epoxy resin, which we actually have in stock right now, so check out the link below if you want to try it out. And I'm going to apply this like I normally would and grab my torch at the very end to pop any bubbles, and then I'm going to set a timer on my phone to come back after about 10 to 15 minutes to remove that piece of tape. Again, if you are not taping off the bottom of your tumbler today, you can just ignore that instruction. After about 6 to 8 hours, I came right back to apply my second coat. This second coat I'm going to allow to dry overnight before we move on to the next step. Now that we've got 2 coats of epoxy on our tumbler and it is mostly smooth, we're ready to move on to some sanding and decals. If you find that after just 2 coats of epoxy, your cup is still really, really bumpy, that's okay. Just go in with a 3rd coat before you move on to this step. I'm doing my normal sanding routine here. We're just going to sand along the top rim to expose a fine line of stainless steel. This is where our final coats of epoxy will adhere to create the final seal for our tumbler on the outer rim, rather than the very top rim where it's more vulnerable. I am using either a 60 or an 80 grit sanding block for this. And then what I like to do after I get most of the work done is go over it with a finer grit just to smooth everything out and make sure that rim is nice and neat. I'm also going to go around to the sides and smooth out any kind of pokey bits that might be poking up through the surface. After we're done with our sanding, I'm going to clean this up with some rubbing alcohol and paper towels before moving on to the next step. For our design today, I'm using this really beautiful, I'm going to call this robin egg blue sparkly vinyl. I can't remember where I got it from, but I'm going to double check and I will link it in the description box. And I've cut some modern, they call them modern abstract shapes. I found these in the GoDaddy Studios app under the graphics section. I just typed in abstract shapes and these shapes came up, and then I sized them somewhere around between 4 to 6 inches each. There is 3 different shapes that I'm working with today. You can look up any kind of modern weird shapes, or you can just hand cut them yourself. The point is that we really want to use these bright, beautiful colors as design elements and the backdrop for the detail that we're going to be adding in later with our leopard spots and our Montserrat leaf outlines. I just cut these with my Cricut. Now this sparkly vinyl is very thick and it was very hard to get it to lay flat around that top rim. But I'm going to show you how I dealt with that here in a minute. You can see that I actually think I just used one shape for a couple different spaces and then trimmed up the excess with my craft knife. And you can even reshape them once they're on the cup with your craft knife if you want that little blob to be skinnier or fatter. However you want it to be. It's abstract, so there's really no right or wrong way to do this. You just want to make sure that that vinyl does get laid on there nice and smooth and try to squeeze out any kind of air bubbles. To trim off that excess around the top and bottom rim, I just ran that through my edge trimmer, and anywhere that the vinyl was still kind of puckering along the rim, I just grabbed my heat gun and put my heat gun down next to it for a good amount of time, almost until it was burning hot. Obviously you don't want to melt the vinyl or melt your epoxy, so don't go too crazy, but a good amount of heat is going to just melt and bond this to that curve there to lay it perfectly flat. I applied the fluorescent pink shapes in the same way that I applied the blue ones, except where it overlapped over the blue shapes. I just took my craft knife and trimmed along that seam there so it looks seamless where they overlap each other. And I cleaned up the rim in the same way. So I just trimmed off that excess vinyl with my craft knife and then ran it through my edge trimmer to clean it up. I didn't have to use my heat gun on this fluorescent pink vinyl because it was thinner and it laid down really nicely. Once I got those pink and blue blobs laid down, I know what some of you are thinking. Listen, this was truly a trust the process design. I promise you, it's all going to come together in the end. We're going to add these leopard spots. Now, this is a 2-layer leopard print cut file that I found on Etsy. I cut it out using my Cricut with some regular Oracal 651 vinyl. And we are just going to place these by hand, one by one, placing the rosette of the spot first, and then we'll place the black outline second. You will see, a little bit of an overlap with these, but it is what it is. I think it looks fine. And we're just going to randomly place those within the blue blobs and extend them out just a little bit beyond the blue blob area. Okay. Super cute though. I just absolutely love this. My original idea was to paint all this. I was going to hand paint it. And I got to about this point with the hand painting and decided absolutely not. We're going to use vinyl because there really is no comparison to how vibrant and beautiful these colors look together, and they are the absolute perfect shade that I was wanting for this project. I kept going with the leopard spots through all the blue sections, and when I was done, I did apply a thin layer of epoxy over this like I normally would, because I'm going to layer a different vinyl over and I didn't want you to see the overlap and the seams. Here we are after I applied a layer of epoxy over those leopard spots, and now we are going to apply our Montserrat leaf outlines using this really pretty orangey, pinky, shifty opal holographic vinyl. I like to cut this opal holographic vinyl using the textured metallic cut setting on my Cricut. I have a Maker 3, and that tends to work the best for me, especially for these really thin, kind of detailed cuts. I'm not gonna lie, those leaves really kind of got my goat this morning when I was cutting those. They were a total pain in the butt. I'm also gonna add this Create, Inspire, Repeat decal from the same vinyl. I made this file a really long time ago. I can't remember what the font was, but I actually have this file in my Facebook group in the file section. A lot of you guys say that you can't access the file section in my Facebook group. That's because you cannot access it through the mobile site. You have to be on your computer, and you'll find a bunch of the free files that I have there. So we're just going to measure twice, so we only have to cut once, and I'm going to apply this using the hinge method like I normally do. Once I got the decal on there, I went around and put those Montserrat leaf outlines in just kind of random spots. Well, not really random. I placed them in the pink blobby sections to add a little pizzazz, and then I trimmed off the excess from the leaves that overhung with my craft knife. After all that vinyl work, I was finally ready for my final coat of epoxy, and this truly was a final coat. I got lucky. I find that with my Flynn Sisters premium epoxy, because it is a medium to thicker viscosity, you can often get really good final coats right over the decal with just one coat coverage. Love that. And you'll notice I didn't tape off for this last coat. That's because I am just going to wipe off any excess epoxy with some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. And that's what's going to give me that really nice clean finish from a taped off bottom. Again, we go over that in very good detail in the video that I will link in the description box about how and why I tape off the bottom of my tumblers. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I absolutely love this design. I made this for my friend Jessica Reich. She's on YouTube too with her friend Jerry. They are the Misfit Makers. I will link their channel in the description box. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Stay tuned. We'll see you again Wednesday for another video. And a big thank you to all of our Flynn Sisters exclusive members. Thank you for your pledge. Your support means the world to our channel. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.